everyone. So our topic for today is chapter number 4, the freedom struggle of 1857. In 1857, a great struggle took place in India which completely shook the British government. The struggle did not arise all of a sudden. Earlier as well, many such struggles took place in India against the British, right? That wherever the British were there, the Indian people were literally into problems, okay? So in 1857, there was a great struggle in India which completely shook the Indian British government. So all of the people came together and they had a great struggle together. Now what struggle was it? We will see it in the further chapter. That is what they completely shook the Indian British government. But what do you mean by shook? Shook is the past tense of shocked. Okay, so the British government was completely shocked, and this struggle was not all of a sudden, right? That whenever Britishers were there, Indians were harassed, right? So this was not all of a sudden. ये पहले से plan था. मतलब they all were in distress, right? कि they were always disappointed by British government. So this struggle was not all of a sudden. Earlier as well, many such struggles took place in India against the British. The scope of the struggle of 1857 and its background was taken into consideration by V.D. Savarkar in his book The Indian War of Independence 1857. Later, many revolutionaries got inspiration from it to fight against the British. Okay, so who came up with this idea? Dr. V.D. Savarkar. Okay, he mentioned this whole incident, the background of this incident in his book. Now, what was the book's name? The Indian War of Independence of 1857. Okay, so in his book he mentioned all of these things, and then after reading that book, many leaders who thought that okay, we should fight against Britishers, they also got inspired from this book, and then they came into movement to fight against Britishers. Now, struggle before 1857. So now we are talking about the freedom struggle of 1857. But उसके पहले struggle क्या था? क्या struggle हुआ जिसके कारण we had to do this movement? At every place where the British rule was established in India, the local people had to bear the ill effects of British government. The Indians started feeling that they are exploited in every strata due to the company's rule. This resulted in increase of discontent against the rule. Okay, so what happened that wherever Britishers were there, the people over there were actually disturbed. Why? Because they had to follow rules, regulations which were given by British government, right? So all of the people were actually in a great pain under the British government. So they started feeling that they are being exploited. कि एक तो खुद के कंट्री में आप रह रहे हो तो भी आपको किसी के अंडर रहना पड़ रहा है, and everyone is disturbing you, harassing you. So they felt like that in every strata. Now what do you mean by strata? In every strata. What do you mean by strata, students? That is basically like in every field or in every group. Okay, so wherever they were being exploited. Exploited was like were greatly in trouble कि हर बार exploit कर देता था British government उनको, and that is why it was the result of discontent that every Indian had like एक गुस्सा रहता है ना against Britishers कि भाई कितना हम लोग को परेशान कर रहे हैं वैसा. So every Indian had that discontent among Britishers. Farmers and common people became bankrupt during the company rule. In 1770, there was a major famine in the Bengal province, but the British rulers were indifferent and insensitive towards Indian people. Okay, from 1763 to 1857, the peasants of Bengal participated in the rebellion led by Sannyasi Fakir. Similar revolts took place in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra and South Indian. Okay, now farmers and common people were the one who were greatly troubled during British government. Okay, now what they used to do? Famine took place, right, in 1770. Now ऐसे situation में क्या होता है that there is scarcity of food, right? That there is no food to consume, कि आपके पास food होता ही नहीं है, there is no availability of food. At such situations also British government, they didn't have any mercy on the people, on farmers कि okay, हर बार farmers आप लोग को crops provide करते हैं, but because of famine they don't have crop production, खाना ही नहीं है. So at such times we should help. ऐसे government को कभी भी नहीं लगा in such situations also they never helped common people or farmers. Okay, they were always just providing them discontent. Okay, कि हमेशा उनको सिर्फ दुखी कर रहे थे वैसा. From 1763 to 1857 the peasant of Bengal participated in the rebellion. Okay, so एक rebellion it's like a kind of against the British के एक rebellion organize हुआ था which was led by सन्यासी फकीर. So all of the peasant took part in that rebellion, on that event जो against Britishers था. Similar revolts were taken place in, ये तो एक बंगाल का पार्ट हो गया, right? Similar revolts were taken place in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra and South India. He organized the Ramoshis and the local youth to revolt against the British. They drew a declaration and appealed to fight against the British and overthrew the government. They inspired people in Pune, Satara, Ahmednagar, Solapur, Nashik, Bor, etc. In 1832, Umaji Nayak was arrested and hanged to death in Pune. Okay, so Umaji Nayak was a strong fighter. Okay, he always gave a strong fight against Britishers. He made up this rebellion. He collected people, all the peasants, all the commoners were in his support, and they were fighting against the Britishers. Okay, so they made an appeal to the people. They made an appeal to the government. Okay, to help us, or even if they can't help them, at least don't harass them. Vesa. And later on, getting inspired by all of these people from all of the parts of India like Pune, Satara, everyone came together to fight against Britishers, and at last this Umaji Nayak was arrested and hanged to death in Pune. Okay, the Indian tribes and forest communities also challenged the British rule, that even the tribes and the forest communities were being greatly क्या बोलते हैं आप, परेशान हो गए रहते ना ब्रिटिशर्स से, वैसा हालत हो गया था. एंड इवन दे वर रेडी टू फाइट अगेंस्ट ब्रिटिशर्स. देयर लाइवलीहुड वाज डिपेंडेड ऑन फॉरेस्ट रिसोर्सेज. द ब्रिटिश लॉ पुट्स restrictions on it. Consequently, Bihar, Kollam area of Chota Nagpur, Gonds of Orissa, Santhals of Bihar fought against the British. The Gadkaris from Kolhapur and Fon Savant from Konkan also challenged the Britishers. Before 1857, some zamindars and royal class from different territories rebelled against the British. Okay, so what happened, हम लोग ने ऊपर देखा that forest communities and even tribal people were against them. Why they were against them? Because उनका पूरा खाना depends on forest, right? कि जो उनका availability of food होता है ना, that is from forest. But that also was deeply restricted by British government, कि उन्होंने पूरा restrict कर दिया था. So even they were angry by Britishers, and that is why they thought कि we are also ready to fight against Britishers. Then specific part के मतलब क्या हो गया था, wherever this British rule was there, every people over there was angry on them and they had a reason to fight against them. Okay, so this was like tribe people भी ready थे. फिर some parts of Bihar, Kollam area of Chota Nagpur, all of these people were also ready to fight against Britishers. Then we have Gadkaris from Kolhapur and Fon Savant from Konkan, even they were ready to fight against Britishers. And in 1857 there were few zamindars and few royal classes, even they were ready to fight against Britishers, because each and every people in our country was completely harassed or being angry or was angry with Britishers, and that is why they thought that we should fight against them, that there is no point rather just sitting and accepting them, so rather we should fight against them. So all of these was the reason that every Indian was ready to fight against Britishers. Okay, now coming to the next part. In the army of East India Company, there were many Indian sepoys. Now what do you mean by sepoy, students? That sepoy is basically an Indian soldier who is working for Britishers. So जो East India Company था ना, उसमें many of the employees were Indians. They were ill-treated by the company. Their salary and allowances were very less compared to the British soldiers. In 1806 at Vellore and in 1824 at Barrackpore, the revolt took up a fierce form. Now what used to happen कि East India Company में the employees were Britishers के employees भी थे and Indian के employers भी थे. Fine. So what they used to do is, जो Britishers के soldiers थे उनको वो लोग अच्छे से pay करते थे, but जो हमारे Indian थे they used to pay them less salary. So that is why एक रीज़न था इंडियन सोल्जर्स के पास to have discontent for Britishers that they were not rightly paid. अगर आप लोग काम करा के ले रहे हो तो आपको पे भी उतना ही करना चाहिए, right? But they were not paying them that much, and that was the reason that Indian soldiers were completely against Britishers. And then there was this event which was taken place in 1806 at Vellore and in 1824 at Barrackpore, which was against Britishers by soldiers. All this rebellion took place in their respective territories. They were local in nature and single-handed. The British forcibly broke down the revolts. Okay, now what used to take place कि ये सारे जो rebellions थे, all of these छोटा wars were in the particular territories, okay, respective territories कि जहाँ के लोग हैं वही खुद से करते थे, and all of them were local in nature and single-handed. Okay, that everyone, the people who were against them, वो लोग ही handle करते थे. Okay, so what Britishers used to do is they had to forcibly break down the revolts. कि ये जो group of people था ना, they had to break them down to stop them. Public unhappiness was suppressed, but it did not vanish. This anger burst out in the freedom struggle of 1857. At various places, the rebellion took place against the British. The discontent in the minds of diverse classes blowed out in the form of this struggle, and its outbreak was in the form of an armed rebellion. Okay, but Britishers जो भी कर ले, जितने rebellion को वो लोग तोड़ रहे थे, but the discontent among the people, the anger among the people against the Britishers was still the same. क्योंकि एक तो काम करा के लेते थे, plus they used to even provide them problems, right? कि उनको problems में डालने वाले भी वो लोग ही थे Britishers. So that is why the discontent and the anger among the people was completely there. So no matter what, जितना Britishers try कर लेता था कि ये rebellions को तोड़े, but the anger was still there. So that anger was removed in the freedom struggle of 1857. What was it? What was the outcome of it? Let us see. Causes for the struggle of 1857. Now what was the main cause? अभी हम लोग ने देखा that was struggle. कि why, what was the struggle? कि क्यों, why were people demanding for a war, for a freedom movement? This was all the struggle which we have seen till now. Now we will see the causes. Okay. During pre-British period, there were many kingdoms in India. Whatever changes took place at the center never affected the village system. The village system continued as it is, but the British changed the prevalent system and tried to set up a new system. Looking at the changing nature of village system created a feeling of instability and insecurity in the minds of people. Now what used to happen is कि जो पहले जब Britishers नहीं थी ना, उसके पहले जब भी government था, like उसके पहले का जो situation था, what happened used to happen there were kingdoms in India, right? There were kings who used to rule, and they had their particular kingdom. So whatever changes they made ना बच्चा लोग के जो changes उन्होंने लाया, that never affected the entire village. जो अंदर का system होता है उनमें they used to make changes. So people were secure enough, right? They were like okay, because कोई changes हो नहीं रहा है, they were happy, they were being provided everything, so they were happy. But when British soldiers or British government came into picture, what they used to do is they used to make changes such as the entire village was affected, कि पूरे village को वो affect करता था, and that is why people were in discontent, right? कि उनको और गुस्सा आता था. Why? Because they had to struggle every time whenever a change was made, and that was the main थिंग, मतलब जो एक इनसिक्योरिटी और इनस्टेबिलिटी लाती है, राइट? इफ़ यू आर एक्सेप्टिंग सम न्यू चेंजेस, ओके फाइन, अभी आपने एक्सेप्ट करना स्टार्ट कर दिया, यू आर इनटू दैट न्यू चेंजेस, कब तक ब्रिटिशर्स को अगेन वापस कोई नया चेंज लाती थी. So that lead to instability, that the people of that particular village were not stable, okay? That lead to insecurity and instability. Now we will see economic causes. What was economic causes? के economic way में कैसे Britishers हम Indians को परेशान करते थे. The British introduced new revenue system to increase their income, okay? So they wanted to increase the income. तो वो लोग क्या करते थे? They used to, obviously, हम लोग के पास है, they used to make certain scheme through which we Indians used to lose our money, and they used to get their income. They had a huge profit from it. Taxes were forcibly extracted from the farmers. As a result of it, the agriculture system collapsed, right? कि हर बार farmers were made to pay tax, no matter what is the situation, famine occur हो रहा है या कुछ भी हो रहा है, farmers had to pay taxes, and that was the main reason why agriculture collapsed, because see, if the production of crops is good, production of crops is better, farmers can still one time think to give tax. But अगर famine है, food ही नहीं मिल रहा, तो वो लोग बेचारे tax कहाँ से भरेंगे? And that was the main reason why there was discontent among farmers. Okay, that is how Britishers used to exploit in economic way to farmers. To sell the British goods in India and enjoy profit was the policy of British. They imposed heavy taxes on the local industries. The handcraft and textile industry of India were ruined. Okay, so what was the main thing of Britishers? कि हम Indians को हमारे इंडिया का प्रोडक्ट यूज़ नहीं करना है. वी हैड टू यूज़ प्रोडक्ट विच वॉज फ्रॉम ब्रिटिश. ओके, विच वॉज exported from that place, from their places, so that we can buy clothes या buy any materials from them and they had a profit. So the India का जो ये था ना, companies थे, like there are textile companies, handmade companies जो खुद से सिलाई करके करते थे. मतलब all of the companies which were of India were in great losses because the people were forced to buy products from Britishers. Many Indian artisans became unemployed. They had growing discontent in their mind against the Britishers, right? They always made certain policies which never profited us. No matter what, profit तो छोड़ दो, मतलब एक बेचारा बंदा जो खुद का लाइफ निकाल सके, खुद का इनकम निकाल सके, उतना भी ब्रिटिशर्स ने छोड़ा नहीं था हम लोगों को. एंड दैट इज़ वाई पीपल हैड अ ग्रेट डिसकंटेंट, राइट? कि अगर आप लोग और अगर ब्रिटिशर्स ने इंडिया में आए, ठीक है, तो फार्मर्स लोग को परेशान नहीं किया होता, या जो इंडियन कंपनीज है उनको ग्रो करने दिए होते, तो द डिसकंटेंट वुडंट बी देयर इन द पीपल, राइट? बट वॉट एवर दे डिड वॉज अगेंस्ट द हैप्पीनेस और अगेंस्ट द happiness of our people, right? And that is why every Indian citizen had a discontent among Britishers. That is how economically Britishers had exploited us. The farmers were forced to pay land taxes. The Indian companies like textile ho gaya, handicrafts ho gaye, everything was exploited. Why? Because they were not allowed to sell their things, sell their materials. The Indian people were forced to buy things from Britishers, and that is how economically Britishers exploited us. Now we will see social causes. The Indians felt that the Britishers were interfering in the culture, tradition and customs of India. Sati Prohibition, Widow Remarriage Act were corrected from social point of view, but the Indian thought that it is an interference in their lifestyle and hence they were dissatisfied. Okay, now what happened was सोशल कॉजेज़, जो हमारे सोशल कॉजेज़ होते हैं, लाइक हमारे जो कल्चर है, ट्रेडिशंस है, कस्टम्स है, रिचुअल्स है, उसमें दे वर ट्राइंग टू ब्रिंग चेंजेस. ओके, नाउ सती प्रोहिबिशन. नाउ व्हाट डू मीन बाय सती? स्टूडेंट, सती अगर आप लोगों को सब लोगों को पता है, व्हाट इज एक्ट, व्हाट डू मीन बाय सती एक्ट? Do you mean, students, सती एक्ट क्या होता है? सती एक्ट इज बेसिकली व्हेन द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ वॉलंटरीली और फोर्स्ड बर्निंग, और बेसिकली क्या होता है, जो वीडो होते हैं ना, दे हैव बीन वॉलंटरी और फोर्स्ड बर्निंग और बर्निंग अ लाइफ ऑफ अ वीडो. ओके, कि जो वीडोज़ होती है, अगर उनके जो हस्बैंड ऑफ हो गए रहते हैं तो उनके बाद उनको भी आग में कूद जाना रहता है. दैट वाज द सती एक्ट, राइट? एंड वीडो मैरिज एक्ट वो करेक्टेड. ओके, सो ये एक्चुअली देखा जाए तो हमारे अच्छे के लिए ही था. दैट सती एक्ट वाज प्रोहिबिटेड, कि जो ये सती एक्ट था उनको प्रोहिबिट किया था ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट ने, तो ये एक साइड से अच्छा ही हुआ. प्लस वीडो री मैरिज एक्ट वो करेक्टेड. ओके, कि जो वीडो दे हैड अ राइट टू री मैरिज, तो ये सारे एक्ट्स ब्रिटिशर्स ने लाए. तो एक साइड से ऐसे देखा जाए तो ये अच्छा ही पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू था. बट अगेन द इंडियन थॉट दैट इट वॉज एन इंटरफियरेंस इन द लाइफ स्टाइल. बट इंडियंस को क्या लगा, ये ठीक है, चलो ये एक पॉइंट पे माना जा सकता है, but Indian thought that they are interfering in our culture and tradition, and that is why they were dissatisfied. Okay, political causes. Now what do you mean by political causes? के ये सारे हम लोग ने देखा social causes के people thought that they are interfering into our culture, traditions, trying to make changes in it, and that is why people had a discontent among Britishers. Now we will see politically उन्होंने क्या changes लाए Britishers ने. After 1757, the British took charge of many Indian states. Later, Lord Dalhousie annexed many princely states on various causes. The Nawab of Ayodhya was dethroned on grounds of of Malay administration, whereas the princely states of Satara, Nagpur, and Jhansi were annexed through the doctrine of lapse. Due to this policy of Dalhousie, the Indian did not consider the British as trustworthy. Now what happened was, जो लॉर्ड डलहौजी था, आप लोग ने सबने उनका नाम तो सुना ही होगा पहले के चैप्टर्स में, राइट? सो ही एनेक्स मेनी प्रिंसली स्टेट्स ऑन वेरियस कॉजेज. तो ही टुक प्लेस मेनी प्लेसेस. नाउ हाउ ही टुक प्लेस, लेट अस सी. सो जो नवाब ऑफ अयोध्या था, जो नवाब थे अयोध्या के, ही वाज डी थ्रोन के, उनका जो थ्रोन है, उनको जो सिंहासन दिया गया था, उनको उन्होंने डी थ्रोन कर दिया था. कौन से बेसिस पे? मलाय एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, whereas maladministration, sorry, what am I saying? I'm extremely sorry, students. Nawab of Ayodhya was dethroned on grounds of maladministration, whereas the princely states of Satara, Nagpur and Jhansi were annexed through doctrine of lapse. कि जो ये था अपना नवाब ऑफ अयोध्या, उनको डीथ्रोन क्यों कर दिया, उनको थ्रोन से नीचे उतार दिया था, क्यों? बिकॉज ऑफ माल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. माल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन मतलब क्या स्टूडेंट? दैट एक आरोप लगा देना दैट ही इज़ नॉट डूइंग द मैनेजमेंट प्रॉपरली, लाइक मिसमैनेजमेंट बोलते हैं ना, उसको माल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन बोलते हैं. कि नवाब ऑफ अयोध्या पे क्या नाम डाल दिया कि आपका एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन आप बराबर से संभाल नहीं पा रहे हो, एंड दैट इज़ वाई यू नीड टू गेट डाउन ऑफ द थ्रोन. एंड अगेन द डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स ऑफ सातारा, नागपुर एंड झांसी, उनको कैसे कैप्चर कर लिया? टू डॉक्ट्राइन ऑफ लैप्स. नाउ व्हाट डू you mean by doctrine of lapse? Doctrine of lapse, student, this was like a policy which was established by British government. कि उनका रूल क्या था कि if there is a ruler, okay, if a ruler dies childless, कि अगर बच्चा नहीं होता उनको and वो ऐसे ही मर जाते हैं, then the right of ruling is given to the people, okay. So वैसे करके उनको उनका रूल भी ले लिया गया. किनका? द स्टेट्स ऑफ सातारा एंड नागपुर एंड झांसी, वैसे करके उन्होंने वो सारे स्टेट्स भी ले लिए. ड्यू टू दिस पॉलिसी ऑफ डलहौजी, बिकॉज ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दिस पॉलिसी, व्हाट दे यूज्ड टू डू इज़, पहले वो जो ये रहेगा ना, जो किंग रहेगा या जो ओनर रहेगा, वहाँ पे उनको मतलब शादी से पहले ही मार देते थे, तो उनके बच्चे ही नहीं रहते थे. एंड देन दे हैड दिस राइट के ओके, पहले कैसा होता था, अगर किंग ऑफ हो गया तो उसका जो बच्चा रहता है, ही यूज्ड टू प्रोसीड एज अ किंग. बट यहाँ पे इनका रूल क्या था कि अगर बच्चा नहीं होता तो एनी वन हैज़ द राइट टू रूल. दिस वॉज द पॉलिसी विच वॉज नोन एज, हम लोग ने देखा ना अभी, डॉक्ट्राइन ऑफ लैप्स, ओके. सो बिकॉज ऑफ दिस पॉलिसी ऑफ डलहौजी, द इंडियन पीपल वर थिंकिंग दैट दिस गवर्नमेंट इज़ नॉट ट्रस्ट वर्दी, के इनके ऊपर हम ट्रस्ट नहीं कर सकते, ओके. Discontent among Indian soldiers. Now why there was discontent between the Indian soldiers, let us see. The Indian soldiers were given low status by the British officers. They could not gain any post higher than Subedar. They were paid less compared to the British soldiers. The allowances were also gradually decreased. Due to this reason, they were growing discontent among Indian soldiers. जैसे कि हम लोग ने पहले देखा स्टूडेंट्स, हम लोग ने पहले क्या देखा, that only British government was given sufficient salary and not Indian governance, okay. तो एक ये रीज़न तो है ही हमारे ब्रिटिश इंडियन सोल्जर्स के पास, के टू शो अ डिसकंटेंट अमॉन्ग द ब्रिटिशर्स, बट एट द सेम टाइम द सैलरी वर गिवन less and all of the allowances. Now what do you mean by allowances? Allowances is the amount of something that is permitted, okay. कि एक फिक्स अमाउंट जिनका बोलते हैं ना विद इन, मतलब बेसिकली क्या बोलते हैं, द अमाउंट ऑफ समथिंग दैट इज परमिटेड, ओके. तो उसको बोलते हैं अलाउंस, ओके. तो अलाउंसेस जो थे सारे वो भी डिक्रीज हो रहे थे, एंड दैट इज़ वाई. एंड या हम लोग ने एक लाइन भूल गए कि जो सूबेदार की पोस्ट है उसके ऊपर कोई भी पोस्ट दी ही नहीं जा रही थी इंडियन सोल्जर्स को. जो भी दी जा रही थी वो ब्रिटिश सोल्जर्स को दी जा रही थी. एंड दैट इज़ वाई एवरी इंडियन सोल्जर वॉज हैविंग डिसकंटेंट दैट दो वी आर वर्किंग हार्ड बट दे वर नॉट, उनका जो जितना काम कर रहे उतना उनको ये नहीं मिल रहा था, उतना उनको क्या बोलते, उतना वर्क नहीं मिल रहा था जितना वो लोग काम कर रहे थे. कि जितना काम कर रहे उतना आपको पोस्ट भी मिलना चाहिए, राइट, बट उतना पोस्ट उनको मिल नहीं रहा था. एंड दैट इज़ वाई द इंडियन सोल्जर्स वे कम्प्लीटली डिस्टर्ब बाय ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट. Immediate cause. In 1856, the British provided long Enfield rifles to Indian sepoys. The sepoys were required to bite the end of the cartridge. The news spread out that these cartridges were smeared in the fats of cow and pig. Due to this, the religious sentiments of Hindu and Muslim sepoys were hurt and made them unhappy. Okay. Now what do you mean by speared students? अभी यहाँ पे क्या हो गया? Immediate cause. Now what do you mean by immediate cause? हम लोग ने ऊपर देखा राइट कि जो इंडियन सोल्जर्स थे वो लोग why they had like a discontent among British soldiers. Now later on the British soldiers provided them certain guns. Okay, certain guns were being provided. Now certain guns were being provided. ठीक है, उनका जो कार्ट्रिज भरना रहता है ना, जो ऊपर जो पॉइंट से हम लोग शूट करते हैं, तो ओके, तो उसको ये लोग ने जो दिया था, ब्रिटिशर्स ने जो इंडियन को दिया था, दैट वाज स्मियर्ड बाय द फैट्स ऑफ cows and goats. Now what do you mean by smeared? Smeared is like a coat or mark. Now smeared is basically a sticky substance, so that was made from the fats of goats and cows, and that is why it was a great discontent among people, right? कि हमारे animals को मार के ये लोग ने वो cartridges guns के बनाए हैं, so that is why that led to a religious sentiment hurt, right? कि it hurts you, right? Because हमारे animals है उनको hurt करके बनाया है, and plus if you say to use them, it's very difficult. Someone you are pleasing. Now cow is something जिनको हम गाय माता बोलते हैं, हम उनको प्रे करते हैं, उनकी पूजा करते हैं. तो at that particular time if you are providing a certain substance in which you say that is being smeared from cow and goat fats, so the sentiments of Indians were hurt, and that was the main reason why Indian soldiers had a very discontent among Britishers. क्यों? Because एक तो हम लोग को गन्स ऐसी प्रोवाइड की विच इज़ बीन स्मियर्ड फ्रॉम काउज एंड गोट का फैट, सो दैट वाज अ मेन रीज़न दैट इंडियन सोल्जर्स के सेंटिमेंट्स हर्ट हो गए थे, and that is why they were angry on British soldiers. So this was the immediate cause. Now let us see the outburst. Disciplinary actions was taken on those sepoys who refused to use the smeared cartridges and were given severe punishment. अब एक तो अभी समझो मैं हूँ तो मैं ना बोल दूँगी that no, I am someone who pray to cow and pray to animals, and that is why I won't be using such instruments. तो जो soldiers ने ना बोल दिया था वो गन यूज़ करने को, they were given severe punishment. Okay, उनको वापस ये लोग पनिश करते थे. मंगल पांडे from Barrackpore cantonment shot an English officer as a reaction to unjust nature of British officers. Okay, so what he did, he shot an Indian officer. के English officers को उन्होंने shoot कर दिया था. Why? Because of this nature of British officers कि जो उनका nature था which was disturbing people, that is why. मंगल पांडे was arrested and hanged to death because उस टाइम पे गवर्नमेंट तो ब्रिटिशर्स की थी, so वापस मंगल पांडे he was arrested and hanged to death. This news spread like fire. The entire regiment of Indian sepoys at Meerut took place in the freedom struggle and marched towards Delhi. So this led to disturbance in people of India, right? Everyone were angry that why this बेचारे हमारे अच्छे खासे soldier थे मंगल पांडे, he was being hanged to that, and that is why people were in anger and they led a march towards Delhi. Thousands of Indians voluntarily joined them on the way. They handed over the leadership of freedom struggle to Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah and proclaimed him as the Emperor of India. Okay, तो जो बहादुर शाह थे उनको पूरा जिम्मेदारी जो बोलते हैं ना responsibilities वो दी गई थी, and then he was the next Emperor of India. Now the scope of the struggle, that now we know what was the cause of struggle, why people were in anger. Now what was the scope of struggle, कि क्या scope था, that why everyone were together, क्या ये struggle possible था या नहीं, वो हम लोग देखते हैं. The self-confidence of the sepoy increased with the capture of Delhi. It also gave the inspiration to other soldiers. The revolt soon spread in North India. The Indian soldiers revolted in cantonments from Bihar to Rajputana. Now, the emperor, able to capture Delhi. Now once Delhi was captured, the Indian soldiers felt happy. Now they felt कि नहीं, अभी हमारे पास chance है that we can go against the British. Okay, so now they thought कि अभी once the Delhi is captured, now we can go against Britishers. The Indian soldiers revolted in cantonments from Bihar to Rajputana. Now what do you mean by cantonment, students? Cantonment is like a military का group. एक military group या soldiers बोलते ना, उसको बोलते हैं cantonment. So Indian soldiers were into groups from Bihar to Rajputana. The revolt spread in Lucknow, Allahabad, Kanpur, Banaras, Bareilly and Jhansi. Later it spread to South India. कि पहले दिल्ली को तो कैप्चर कर लिया, फिर जो नॉर्थ के पीपल थे they were together from then this cantonment spread to South India. So जो South के people थे, even they were together in the revolt. It's the Chhatrapati Pratap Singh of Satara and his officer Rango Bapuji, Chima Sahib of Kolhapur, Bala Sahib Bhave of Nargun, Bagoji Nayak of Ahmednagar were in the front foot. So all of these places, हर एक places के एक एक जो leaders थे या जो main people थे, वो लोग सब साथ में थे. Now see, the Delhi was being captured, the north people were together, the south people were together. So now this could be a scope of Indian struggle. Why? Because everyone was together. So that एक chance बोलते ना कि चलो सब साथ में आए हैं, तो we can lead a struggle. Royal Queens of Pate, Surgana from Nasik district also participated in the struggle. In 1857, under the leadership of Qajar Singh, the Bhils revolted, whereas Shankar Shah led the revolt in Satpura region. 400 female Bhils participated in the revolt at Khandesh. Okay, so all of these revolt took place in different parts of India, and everyone like हर एक place का हर एक मतलब एक leaders थे. जैसे यहाँ पे हम लोग ने देखा that Surgana was there from Nasik, and Bhils का जो revolted था that was under the leadership of Qajar Singh. Okay, so all of these were leaders who fought it, मतलब जिन्होंने फाइट किया किसके लिए, हर एक स्टेट के लिए खुद के, प्लस दे केम टुगेदर टू फाइट अगेंस्ट ब्रिटिशर्स. नाउ लीडरशिप ऑफ द स्ट्रगल. ओके, कि ये तो हम लोग ने देखा कि ऑल ऑफ दीज वर लीडर्स. नाउ वी विल सी कि कैसे स्ट्रगल का लीडरशिप कॉज हुआ, कि कैसे सब लोग साथ में आए, कैसे लीडरशिप फॉर्म हुआ, एंड कैसे हम लोग ने ये स्ट्रगल का इस्टेब्लिशमेंट एंड हाउ डिड वी टुक प्लेस. So let us start with our next topic, leadership of the struggle. During the 18th CA, after the weakening of Mughal Empire, invaders like Nadir Shah Abdali attacked India. The Marathas understood that Mughal Empire cannot react to this foreign invasion and took up the responsibility of safeguarding India. So in 18th CE, the Mughal emperor, they were not leading that much, and at that time Abdali and Nadir Shah, they thought to attack India. The Marathas understood that Mughal Empire cannot react to this foreign invasions and took up the responsibility of safeguarding India. The Marathas fought against Abdali at Panipat for the same reason, but now the Marathas, they knew that the Mughals, they are not that strong that they can fight against Abdali and Nadir Shah. So they thought that they would provide protection to India, and they came up with responsibility of safeguarding India, that they took the responsibility that we would provide security to Indian people. The Marathas fought against Abdali at Panipat for the same reason, and that is why the Marathas were fighting against Abdali at Panipat for the same reason. Okay, now you might have seen the movie as well, the Abdali, which was Sanjay Dutt who was leading it, right? So that was the story when Maratha was fighting against Abdali. In the freedom struggle of 1857, the descendant of Mughals, Bahadur Shah, was incapable of fighting against the British. Understanding the condition, Nana Sahib Peshwa, Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, and Tatya Tope took up the charge of freedom struggle of 1857. Okay, now the Marathas, they decided, right, to fight against Abdali and Nadir Shah, and at the same time, the descendant of Mughals, okay, he was not able to fight against all of them, so against Britishers. Okay, so who helped them to fight against Britishers at that time? Nana Sahib Peshwa, Rani Lakshmi Bai and Tatya Tope, they took up the charge to fight against Britishers to save India. Its effect could be seen on the Hindu-Muslim unity in the struggle. Maulana Ahmad Allah, Kunwar Singh, Mughal commander Bakat Khan, Begum Hazrat Mahal lead the revolt in various regions. The nature of revolt in Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Jhansi, West Bihar was more fierce. Okay, so at particular places only there were people who were leading this war and who were fighting against Britishers. Okay, so over here we could see that Kunwar Singh, Mughal commander, Bakht Khan, Begum, Hazrat Mahal, these all were the people who were leading the areas of Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Jhansi, West Bihar, etc. Now, crushing of the struggle. Now, we have seen what was the aim of the struggle, what was the scope of the struggle, okay, what were the causes of the struggle. Now we will see how it ended. Okay, crushing of the struggle is like how it wasn't that successful, क्योंकि वो इतना सक्सेस स्ट्रगल को नहीं मिला. Let us see. The Indians wholeheartedly fought against the Britishers, including soldiers, zamindars, king, commanders, and common people. The Indian sepoys started the freedom struggle before the fixed time. Okay, so now what happened, that everyone was against, everyone was fighting against Britishers, then be it normal soldiers or zamindars, common people, everyone. Why? Because everyone has had a discontent among Britishers, right? So everyone was ready to fight against Britishers. So the fixed timing at which the war was decided, the Indian sepoys started before it. Okay, initially they succeeded, but military strength and administration of British rule was vast. The British crushed down the struggle by all means. The British made quick recovery and within next 6 months regained lost territories. Rani Lakshmi Bai, Kunwar Singh, Ahmadullah led their lives. Okay, but what happened, हम लोग के इंडियंस का क्या स्ट्रैटेजी था, जो टाइम फिक्स किया था, we decided to fight before it, but at that particular time एक starting में it was a hit for Indians, but after then what happened, that British administration was vast, right? They had a large number of soldiers, they had large numbers of weapons compared to Indians. So every time whatever used to happen, they used to win. Okay, so जो territories उनकी छूट गई थी, okay, the territories which they have, the one which Indians were able to succeed, even they were regained by them. Okay, after 6 months के अंदर ही अंदर they had again taken that territory and they made quick recovery within next 6 months. Why? Because they had all administration बोलो या soldiers बोलो, सब उनके पास था, right? So that is why they could regain all their losses. Rani Lakshmi Bai, Kunwar Singh and Ahmadullah laid their lives. Okay, so in this struggle, Rani Lakshmi Bai, Kunwar Singh and Ahmadullah had to lead their life. Now coming to next part, Bahadur Shah was imprisoned at Rangoon. Nana Sahib and Begum Hazrat Mahal took shelter in Nepal. Tatya Tope fought for next 10 months against the British, but due to betrayal he was caught and hanged to death. Okay, so all of these people, जो Kunwar Singh, Ahmadullah and Rani Lakshmi Bai को छोड़ के, all of the people who were fighting for this reason, like Bahadur Shah, he was imprisoned at Rangoon. Okay, and Nana Sahib and Begum Hazrat Mahal, they took shelter in Nepal, and then Tatya Tope was again fighting for next 10 months, but again उनको betrayal is kind of cheating बोलते हैं ना, धोखा दे दिया गया था, and then he had to die. Okay, he was hanged to death because he had to lose his life. In this way, the end of 1858, the British ruthlessly crushed down the struggle. Okay, कि 1 year के बाद the struggle was completely closed. Why? Because in such cases क्या हो गया, that British had stronger administration or soldiers in terms of Indians, and that is why they could win this struggle and we had to lose it. Okay, even though the struggle began with the discontent among Indian soldiers, but later the peasant, artisans, common people, tribes came together to fight against British. Okay, that the struggle ठीक है, struggle तो it was started because of discontent among the people, but later on also there were people who were ready to fight against Britishers. Then there were artisans, common people, tribes, that everyone had the discontent among themselves, right? Because the British government, they never stopped to tease or क्या बोलते हैं, to harm the Indian soldiers or Indian people, and that is why the discontent was always there and among the people. In this rebellion, Hindu Muslims stood up with a great force. Their common aim was overthrowing the British from India. There was an inspiration of gaining independence behind this struggle, and therefore this freedom struggle gained a national form. Okay, the struggle was a loss, we couldn't win it, but because of this struggle people got to know, okay, that we have unity among ourselves, and if we come together we could definitely throw British government out of our country. And that is when they realized that, okay, we have a great unity among ourselves and we need to fight against Britishers. So though the struggle wasn't that hit, but it made people realize, what did it made realize, that we have a unity, and if we come together and fight for our country we could definitely win. Okay, now what was the causes of failure of struggle? Okay, अभी हम लोग ने देखा क्रश हो गया struggle, कि क्रश the struggle wasn't that hit. तो what was the causes, क्या ऐसे causes थे जिसके वजह से it wasn't that success? Let us see. The struggle of 1857 became unsuccessful due to following reasons. So what was the reason? The first one was the struggle was not comprehensive. The struggle did not take place simultaneously all over India. Its intensity was more severe in North India, but Rajputana, Punjab, some parts of Bengal and Northwest India remained aloof. Okay, so as I said earlier, कि खाली particular places में there were leaders who were leading the fight, and other places में पूरा शांति था. Okay, so what happened was there wasn't, क्या बोलते हैं हम लोग, ये नहीं था that there wasn't a will amongst everyone to fight. Okay, जो particular places थे वही fight कर रहे थे, so that is why there wasn't a stability. Okay, second was lack of central leadership. There were no commonly accepted leader to fight against the British. Due to this, there was no uniform in the struggle against British. अभी क्या हो रहा था, that एक common leader नहीं था, हर एक state का अपना अपना leader था, तो the state was doing according to that leader. But if there was a common leader who was leading them, that could have been a benefit to Indians, right? But वैसा नहीं था. Due to this, there was no uniformity in the struggle against British. Because कैसा होता है, सी स्टूडेंट्स, एक स्टेट का लीडर है, दूसरे स्टेट का लीडर है, तो ये स्टेट वाले लीडर का थिंकिंग अलग हो सकता है, एंड द थिंकिंग ऑफ अदर स्टेट लीडर्स कुड बी डिफरेंट, एंड दैट इज़ वाई देयर वाज नो यूनिफॉर्मिटी अमॉन्ग देम, एंड दैट इज़ वाई दे कुडंट लीड प्रॉपरली. Most of the feudatory princes remained aloof. Now let us see what does that mean. Just as the common people suffered due to British rule, similarly the princes also were suffering, but except a few, others remained faithful to the British. Okay, so in case of princes, हम लोग को खाली few princes का help मिला. Okay, बाकी के other जो princes थे, they were supporting British. Okay, they were फेथफुल टू ब्रिटिश. मतलब क्या, कि वो उनका रिलेशन ब्रिटिशर्स के साथ अच्छा रख रहे थे, एंड दैट इज़ वाई वी कुडंट गेट दैट अमाउंट ऑफ रिस्पॉन्स फ्रॉम प्रिंसेस. ओके, lack of military tactics. Now let us see what does that mean. Indian soldiers were brave but did not use tactics. They captured Delhi but could not retain it. Similarly, the Indian rebels had limited arms supply. Okay, कि हम लोग ने दिल्ली तो कैप्चर कर लिया था, बट उसको मेंटेन कैसे करना है वो आइडिया हम लोग के पास नहीं था. हमारा आर्मी इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं था कंपेयर टू British army. The British had economic strength, disciplined army, enough stock of latest arms, and experienced army generals. Okay, that they had economic strength. Okay, financial support उनके पास था. They had a disciplined army. They had economic strength. Enough stock of latest weapons. Okay, जो latest weapons थे उनका enough stock था. Wherein we didn't had that amount of soldiers. We didn't had proper supply of weapons. Since transport and communication was in the hands of British, their movements were swift. Due to this, the Indian sepoys could not succeed. Wars are fought not only based on bravery but also through military strategies, right? कि bravery एक side ठीक है, but if you have strategies then you can execute it in a proper way. But since we didn't had any strategies or we didn't had any plans, that is why we couldn't succeed that better. Next, international situation favorable for Britishers. Okay, the Crimean War with Russia was just over. The British won the war. They had trade relations with different countries in the world. The naval strength of British was vast, whereas the Indian rebels were isolated. Okay, now international situation favorable for Britishers. कि जो Britishers थे, they even get international support. Okay, then there was war between Russia and Britishers, and in that war Britishers won. Okay, so they had connection with different countries who were like enemies of Russia, and that is why they were getting support from those countries. तो नेवल फोर्सेस में वो लोग आगे थे, जो वेपन्स ट्रांसपोर्ट हो रहे थे वो कंट्रीज से मिल रहे थे. सो दे हैड अ प्रॉपर सपोर्ट फ्रॉम अदर कंट्रीज, वेर इन इंडियंस दे डिडंट हैड एनी सपोर्ट from international countries, and that was one of the reason we couldn't, the struggle couldn't be a success. Okay, so all of these were the causes of struggle. All of these were the causes of failure for struggle. Okay, कि हमारा जो struggle था वो इतना hit क्यों नहीं था. Now, consequence of the freedom struggle, end of rule of East India Company. Now, what was the consequences of the freedom struggle? कि okay, चलो freedom struggle हो गया, it was a failure, but उसके बाद circumstances कैसे थे वो हम लोग को देखना है, and we will also see that how East India Company came to an end. Due to the company rule, there was growing dissatisfaction among the Indians, and the British rule had to face the struggle of 1857. It forced the British Parliament to end the rule of company and instead take over the responsibility of ruling over the people of India through the Government of Indian Act 1858. We have seen in previous chapters, right, what they used to do is they didn't used to pay much amount to Indian employees, whereas British employers were paid proper amount. Indian employees were being troubled. Okay, so all of these lead to dissatisfaction among people against Britishers, and that is why the British government were forced to act according to जो इंडिया का ये है ना, act according to the Government of India Act 1858. So they had to act according to it. Now let us see what is it. The Governor General was now designated as the Viceroy of India. Lord Canning happened to be the last Governor General and the first Viceroy of India. A new post called Secretary of State was created in the British government to look after the affairs of India. Okay, so now a new post was given. Okay, Secretary of State, ऐसा एक new post दिया गया था, that person would see against all the affairs, the state affairs of India. Okay. Now, Queen's Proclamation. Let us see what is it. Queen Victoria of England issued a declaration addressing the people of India. Okay, she made a declaration. What was that declaration? Let us see. All Indians are our progeny. Henceforth, they will not be discriminated on basis of race, religion, caste or birthplace. So what declaration she gave? So what do you mean by progeny, students? Progeny is basically like बोलते ना that all Indians are like our children, कि हमारे ही है, अपने हैं वैसे. And that is why she was saying in that declaration that there would be no discrimination. कौन से basis पे race हो गया, religion, caste, birthplace, on such situations and on such basis there wouldn't be any discrimination. Government services will be given on merit. पहले कैसा था that only British soldiers, British people were given proper government service and Indian had to struggle, but now it would be given on proper merit. देर विल बी नो इंटरफेरेंस इन रिलीजियस अफेयर के जो आपके रिलीजियस अफेयर है आप खुद ही उन्हें सॉल्व कर सकते हो. द ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट वॉन्ट बी interfering. It was made clear that British Crown will honor all treaties and agreements made by the company with the rulers of princely states and no princely state will be annexed henceforth. Okay, जो princely state थे उनको they had the rule कि okay they would take part in all the treaties and agreements. Okay, so all of these changes were made after the struggle. तो एक साइड से देखा जाए तो we had some positive impact of struggle. Change in composition of army. The proportion of British soldiers was increased in the army. हम लोग पहले से ही देख रहे राइट कि ब्रिटिश आर्मी ज़्यादा थी एज़ कम्पेयर टू इंडियन आर्मी. हमारे जो इंडियन सोल्जर्स थे वो लोग कम थे आर्मी में. English officers were placed at strategic location. Artillery was kept exclusive in the hands of British. There was division of military on basis of caste. Proper care was taken to avoid Indians to unite and rebel again against the British. But अभी यहाँ पे इन लोग ने क्या किया, ऊपर अच्छा चलो वो डिक्लेरेशन जो क्वीन ने दिया था वो एक साइड से देखा जाए तो थोड़ा सा इट वॉज बेनिफिशियल फॉर इंडियंस, बट नाउ अगेन दे डिड ओके जो ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट हर बार करता है वही उन्होंने किया। दे स्ट्रैटेजी बना के उन्होंने पोस्ट किया था सोल्जर्स को। ओके, सो दे मेड सच स्ट्रैटेजीज दैट वेर इन द इंडियन सोल्जर्स वर प्लेस्ड, उनके साथ मेजॉरिटी ब्रिटिश सोल्जर्स थे, सो दैट इंडियन सोल्जर्स couldn't यूनाइट। ओके, कि अगर समझो 4-5 एक साथ डाल दिए इंडियन सोल्जर्स तो दे नो कि यहाँ पे दे कैन यूनाइट एंड देन दे कुड मेक स्ट्रैटेजीज अगेंस्ट ब्रिटिशर्स। सो दिस वॉज द प्लान, ओके, दैट दे मेड अ प्रॉपर care to make sure they were taking a proper care to make sure that no Indian soldiers come together and think against Britishers. Change in policy. The British accepted the policy of non-interference in social and religious aspects of India. They also started taking care that Indian society will not be united on social grounds. They saw it too that there will be constant conflicts on ground of caste, religion, race, territory, etc. They adopted the policy of polluting the minds of Indians by following the divide and rule policy. Okay, that they accepted कि वो लोग इंडियन के सोशल या रिलीजियस एस्पेक्ट में इंटरफेयर नहीं करेंगे, बट दे वर ऑल्सो मेकिंग श्योर कि ये उन लोग ने चलो डिक्लेयर करने के लिए डिक्लेयर कर दिया था दैट वी वोंट इंटरफेयर इन ऑल योर सोशल एंड रिलीजियस मैटर, बट एट द सेम टाइम दे वर मेकिंग श्योर that we would interfere and we would create conflicts amongst all of them. Okay, either it could be on basis of religion, race, territory. अंदर तो उनका वही चल रहा था कि इनको हम लोग को डिवाइड एंड रूल पॉलिसी के हिसाब से सबको ये करना है, डिवाइड करना है। Due to the freedom struggle of 1857, the Indian felt of giving a united fight against the British rule. The freedom struggle of 1857 became an inspiration of Indian freedom movement. कि though it wasn't a success for us, okay, कि जो struggle था that wasn't a success for us, but when people came together they realized that okay, we have unity amongst us and अगर हम लोग एक साथ आ रहे हैं तो we could definitely fight against Britishers. So at that particular time they thought that okay, the unity of Indians is more important and if we come together we would definitely remove British government outside our country and make our country a free place. Okay students, I hope you have understood the freedom struggle, what was the cause of struggle, what was the scope of struggle, how did the struggle took place, then why did it had a loss, why wasn't it that successful, what were the further circumstances after the struggle. Fine, that was it for today's session. I hope you have understood the session. Now for your homework part, the exercise questions would be your homework. Okay, so the questions on page number 20, that would be your homework. If you have understood the chapter very well, I am damn sure you would be able to complete all of these questions. So yeah, see you all in the next session. Till then, bye bye and take care. Bye.